This is really a follow-up to what we had talked about back at the annual meeting. We got a lot of feedback from folks attending that session about what they hoped for from a commission on church futures. And the Futures Commission members have been meeting regularly since that time. And as I said earlier, have been attempting to put some flesh to the bones, as it were, on what we intended to do. One of the first projects we had was to create a web page. Now, what you're going to see tonight is really a debut of where it is at this point. We regard the web page as being something that's very dynamic and that will continue to grow and evolve as particularly as resources are identified and vetted, and that we believe that they'll be of help to people. So we want to walk you through that, show you how to access it, take a look at some of the finer points of that website tonight. In addition, we have two of our ICF coaches, ICF trained coaches with us tonight, in Joe Motz and Ken Evitz, and they're going to do a demonstration of coaching. Since coaching is one of the primary tools that we have to help congregations. So a little bit later on, they'll do a coaching demonstration based upon some feedback that they're going to get from you in a poll that I hope to be able to launch and that I hope that you'll be able to respond to. And then, of course, any questions that you might have or any feedback that you might have, that'll be instructive to the commission as we move forward. Okay?
Question?
So yes, question.
ICF trained?
Yes, International Coaching Federation.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, keep me honest on those acronyms. Okay. So let me share my screen here. You should see the Penn Central Conference website. Everybody see that?
And it's easier if you put it in speaker view.
In what view?
In speaker view. That's, in other words, in the upper right-hand corner of the screen, there's a thing that says view. And if you click that, you have your choice of standard side-by-side speakers, side-by-side gallery, et cetera, et cetera. But speaker view is the standard, I believe. So that you get to see the whole screen at once and not all of us on the screen.
That way.
Yeah.
Okay. So you see the website. Well, that's Bruce. I'm getting you. Are you seeing me?
Yes, I'm seeing you just fine, and I can see the Penn Central website.
Okay, great. So as you're going forward, if you or your congregational leaders want to access the information on our website, you would come to the Penn Central Conference main page, and under Mission and Ministries, we have this tab called Church Futures Commission. And it's a simple thing to simply click on that, and this is the page you're going to get. It will give you a basic understanding of or description of what the Church Futures Commission is about. As we schedule seminars and workshops, we'll put those up here. You'll notice that what we're doing tonight is essentially the fall workshop, exploring the options. We do have a spring workshop that we're working on. Hopefully, it's going to be on the topic of grant writing for government funding. That's still up in the air, but hopefully we'll get some more information about that coming. There is a tab for online resources that we'll come to in a little bit. Some notion of what's offered in terms of consulting, and hopefully as we identify consultants who will work with us, we can put those things up there. Right now, any consulting would be from from in-house consulting, either the Penn Central Conference consulting or members of the commission who might have some consulting experience. Coaching, as I said, is one of the big things that we focus on and have focused on. But there are some things about that we want to improve through the Church Futures Commission. And if you're interested in coaching, there's a nice description here about what essentially is coaching. And notice that there are different kinds of coaching that are available between individual coaching and team coaching, group coaching. I think Ken and Joe will be going over some of this information a little bit later. Some of the topics that came from people like you at our annual meeting, as well as some brainstorming on our part over the past months, have identified a number of topics, a number of areas in which we think that we could provide some assistance. Some of them more quickly than others in terms of our availability and our own expertise. Certainly, if there are things that your church is struggling with that you would like us to consider, always giving a call and exploring is a possibility. You can see, the whole idea of leadership assessment and development, beginnings, new ministries, shared ministry best practices, governance things, legacy help for those who are looking at endings and beginnings. And then we hope to be able to gather more testimonials. Bruce has provided this particular testimony, and that'll be something that you could take a look at. And again, as I said, we hope to expand these testimonies over time. We also have some information about the actual members of the commission so that you get a fair view of who we are. Not on the page or on the call tonight is Sue Cromwell from the State College area. Ken's here, Joe Motz is here. Sue Schmidt is unable to be with us tonight. I haven't seen David yet. And one other person is Bruce Conrad. He's also on the commission. So that's the 8 of us.
Dave's on the call.
Who is?
David.
Oh,
TT.
okay.
Yep.
Good. Welcome, David.
Hello.
I want to go back up here a piece. Particularly around resources, because we really think that some online resources for you are going to be very, very helpful. And again, this is just in its development stage, but we do have some things here that might be of interest to you. So when you come to the web page, if you're interested in looking at resources, you can just simply click on that button and you get a different page. And on this page, it's a Google document. On this page are a number of topics with, you can see some hot buttons here, some links. Okay. So for instance, if we were to take appreciative inquiry, you could go to appreciative inquiry and click on that. It opens up another box that you can click on, and you can get an entire description of appreciative inquiry as a tool that you might be interested in discerning your future. It's pretty detailed. And then I think at the bottom of this one, there are some other resources. For instance, the Thin Book of Appreciative Inquiry. Again, you'll see some links here. So if you go to, let's say, at Amazon and click on that, you wanted to find out what that particular resource was about, it takes you right to an Amazon page where you can get a description of the book and explore it like you would any other book that you're looking at on Amazon. Okay.
You want to go to CFC online resources. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. If you wanted to take a look at endings and beginnings, for instance, here are some other kinds of resources. And again, there are UCC resources on church legacy and closures, for instance. That clicks and it takes you right to that page. Or partners in sacred spaces. There's another resource for you to take a look at. Again, as a means of beginning the discernment that you might be interested in. Close those out. There are some resources here about shared ministry, governance and ministry. There are a couple of books in particular. Well, this book in particular is one that I've used, and it's been pretty good for working with clergy and lay leaders. There again, a hot link to that. And it gives you some idea of what that book is all about and how you could use it as a study for your council or your consistory. There's some resources on strategic planning, some resources on discerning your congregation's future. These are books that are books to be studied by church leaders and to have some conversation about them, about the ideas in there. I find these two in particular to be interesting. This little one, I Am a Church Member, was a nice book that I used for a congregation-wide small group study, and it helped to get new church members as well as experienced church members an opportunity to re-examine what it does in fact mean to be a church member, what your responsibilities are, and we found it to be pretty interesting. So that's how you get to those places, and it's really just a matter of toggling back and forth between the various links. Down here under coaching, there's my email address. If you're interested in anything that we have to offer as a Church Futures Commission, I encourage people to contact me directly, and then I take those ideas and I share them with the commission, and we discuss them and talk about ways of moving forward with you. Bruce, how am I doing?
I think you're doing great. You really showed off the website and the resources there. Yeah.
Are there any questions from y'all about the website? Pretty simple.
Yeah, it looks great. Just thought I'd tell you. I have no questions because it looks great.
All right.
Mike,
Great.
one question that I have is Carrie was talking about trying to see the website, the Penn Central website, making a shift and making it more, up to date, I guess, more robust. Is that going to change what we have on this section?
It shouldn't. It shouldn't.
Okay.
I'm not sure what all that would involve, but we've been working with the webmaster that's designing whatever it is they're doing,
Okay.
and create these things. We're going to try to get this particular session, the recording of it, embedded also, so that'll be another resource that people can take a look at if they need some help, or if they want to see the coaching demonstration, for instance, which we think would be a good idea. So, but I don't think any change there will affect these things. If it does, we'll have to make some changes. And we're looking at it at this point. There might be some other things that we might want to do with its design. But the whole idea is how do we enable our churches and our church leaders to get access to information easily. And I hope you can see that this is pretty simple. And I think going down through the layers is fairly easy. I encourage you all to take a look at it on your own and try to just navigate some things and see what you can find, see what you can discover. And we're always open to suggestions. If you run into problems or you think there's a way we can improve it. Okay. Anything else on the website? No. Okay. Then where am I here?
This is Fa. It's very streamlined and easy to see. It's very easy to follow. So thank you for that.
Okay, great. Great. Glad to hear that. Screen sharing meeting controls. Okay. Something happened here. Stop share. Okay, there we go. Okay. So I think at this point, we're ready to move into some conversation about coaching and the coaching demonstration. Did you want me to put the poll up at this point, guys? No? No? Who's up?
We can wait on that for a moment, unless, Joe, do you want to do it now? Because I've got to kind of talk about what coaching is first. Do we want to?
Let's talk about what coaching is first, and then have people vote on what they want to see being the coaching on.
Okay. So do you want me to do you need to share your screen, Ken?
I do.
So I need to make you a host?
Co-host.
Co-host, yep.
Okay.
And then I just got to find which, come on.
There you go.
Yeah, you've got to make it. Why are you not wanting to be large for me? Okay.
It looks pretty large, Ken.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
because on mine, it's just a little tiny piece. So as long as it's there. All right. So just to be clear, the International Coaching Federation is it's supposed to be the gold standard, I guess, of coaching. And one of the things that Joe and I are working towards is respectively 2 levels of coaching. Joe, if I recall correctly, you're still working towards your ACC, is that correct?
Yeah, the associate certified coaching level.
And I'm working towards my PCC, and I've got an equivalent with another coaching organization, which is the professional coaching certification. And so Joe and I are very much interested in wanting to proceed in that. And so what we've done, and I encourage you to go on the website for International Coaching Federation, and just you can check out, you can kind of browse through their program and see the different things that are available. But what I'm going to share with you is, well, you're going to see the whole screen. I think you're going to see the whole screen. There we go. So I'm going to go through basically the core competencies. I'm not going to read everything. I'm going to hope that, again, it looks like for me, this is really small. So fortunately, I've got 2 screens here, so I'll be able to adjust. But the foundation of coaching is, the first thing that we're doing is demonstrating ethical practice. And what does that mean? Well, the definition is it understands and consistently applies coaching ethics and standards of coaching. And then there are 7 pieces that are a part of that. The key piece here, and again, this is something that you can learn, is by going to number 4, which is abides by the ICF Code of Ethics and upholds core values. The other thing that we want to do in coaching is the one just previous to that, and that's to use language that is appropriate and respectful to clients. Maintaining the difference between coaching, consultation, psychotherapy, and other types of support professions. The reality check is Joe and I will tell you first and foremost, we are not consultants. We are not therapists. That is not our role. Our role is to do coaching. And within the context of the coaching, our job, our responsibility is to help you to work hard. In fact, one of my coaching classes, one of the mentors said, you know, our job is not to work hard, it's to work smart, which means you're the one, the client has to be the one that's going to work hard. And so the goal of coaching is to trust that the person that we're working with is the expert on their situation. And so we'll get into that more later. Coaching embodies a coaching mindset. Joe and I are both continually looking to read materials, go to classes, do webinars, be a part of that thing in terms of increasing our own awareness of what coaching is all about. I've got certification in a couple of other areas for coaching as well. And Joe's working on some of those things himself. But we want to be able to make sure that we have a mindset that is always going to be one that is saying, what can we do? What are those questions that we can ask that will get our client, get that church, get that pastor able to dig deep and really figure out what's going on in their own lives. And also within coaching, though we're not consultants, sometimes we do have information that we want to be able to present to you. And so we might refer you to a book. We might refer you to somebody else that can help us with all that. The other thing that we want to do in a coaching mindset, when we first start learning coaching, one of the things that we are told is you need to ask powerful questions. Well, sometimes it's not just about asking questions, but it's about giving back. It's about feeding back what we've been hearing, mirroring to the client what it is that we're hearing. And sometimes with an open hand, offering an insight. And if the client doesn't see it that way, then we just let it go and we move on to whatever is important to them. And again, it's always about the client. So this is where we come into the co-creating a relationship, and it's establishing and maintaining agreements. And in the definition of that, partners with the client and relevant stakeholders to create clear agreements about the coaching relationship, the process, the plans, and the goals. Establishes agreements for the overall coaching engagement, as well as those for each coaching session. And basically, when I'm taking on a new client, I tell them what coaching is. We develop a contract together. And what does that look like? But it really has to do with what their goals are. And again, it's always about the client. It's not about me as the coach. I am partnering with the client and those relevant stakeholders. Maybe it's a church consistory or whatever it might be, to establish any overall coaching plan and goals. And partners with the client to determine the client-coach compatibility. Sometimes we're not a good fit, but where I might not be a good fit, I might recommend Joe to be the one that comes in. We may look at, say, somebody else would be a better fit for. We just work with that. And again, a coaching relationship is always going to be one that is in the best interest of the client. It's going to come in later here, not on this page, but one of the things that sometimes we're going to wrestle with is we become engaged. You know, I'm coaching a fellow pastor, and maybe I'm in a situation where I can relate exactly to what the pastor is saying. We've gone through similar situations. I could get down into the pit with that fellow pastor, or I might be able to just stay outside of that. One of the things I think that we always have to remember is we're to coach the person and not the problem. And so we trust that the person knows best what's going on. Our responsibility is to partner with them to help discover what is best. My hope is that as I'm talking, you're able to read through some of these core competencies, because we don't have enough time to do everything. I just kind of want to highlight the 8 pieces that are there, of the 8 primary competencies. All these are subheadings. You can read these on the ICF anytime you want, or seeing as Mike is recording this, you can go back and read it and pause it at any given point, and you can watch it all yourself. Then you don't have to work your way through the ICF page. Cultivating a sense of trust and safety. And what that means is partners with a client to create a safe, supportive environment that allows the client to share freely, maintains relationship of mutual respect and trust. One of the things that when Joe and I first start our coaching demonstration today, after we greet one another as if this is a first time meeting, one of the things that one of us will say, whoever's coaching, is, Ken or Joe, I want to remind you that our conversation today is confidential. This is just for you and me. This is not to go outside. Now, if the client wants to take it outside, that's okay. But as the coach, our responsibility is to you. Okay, and so we want to do that. You want to be supportive. You want to be empathetic. You want to be able to engage with them, maintaining a sense of presence, fully conscious and present with the client, employing a style that is open, flexible, and grounded and confident. What that means is shut your cell phone off or mute it. If your phone rings, too bad, that person will wait. You know, as a coach, our responsibility for that 30 or 50 or 60 minutes is just for the client. And you need to know that I'm going to be engaged with you in that. I'm going to listen actively. I'm going to pay attention. I am going to mirror back. I'm going to reflect what is going on. One of the things that is hard for pastors is to know when to keep their mouths closed. And so, because we like to teach, coaching is not a teaching moment. Coaching is not an opportunity to preach Sunday sermon. Coaching is an opportunity to minister to that person with whom you are dealing. And that means sometimes it's better to be silent and thought a fool than to speak and remove all doubt. Okay, we want to be able to make sure that we allow that space for the client to think, to reflect, to really chew on what it is that they're discovering. That's part of the active listening. And you can see active listening focuses on what the client is and is not saying to fully understand what is being communicated. So within that context, not only are you hearing the words that they're saying, but you're listening to the tone, listening to inflection. If you're able to see them face to face or on Zoom, it's pay attention to body language. Are they making eye contact, or are they off every place else and trying to avoid? You as a coach can't do that, but your client might. You need to pay attention. And one of the things that I find, try not to do coaching immediately after a meal. Because if you do, the blood goes the wrong place and it isn't between your ears. Okay. And so sometimes it's easy to kind of, you know, your eyes get heavy, especially if you've heard it all before, or whatever you think you've heard it all before. You want to make sure that you have that proper space and proper presentation where you can listen actively. The 7th is evoking awareness. And this facilitates clients' insight and learning by using tools and techniques such as that powerful questioning, such as just as powerful silence. Sometimes it's about using metaphors or analogies. Joe and I were having a conversation the other day, and both of us, we came out of nowhere and we had both of us had individual metaphors for a situation that we both went, whoa, I have to remember that. I need to use that. But you can't always use somebody else's. It's got to be germane. It's got to be in the moment. And then the last of the, and you can read through this. Sometimes a word of encouragement with what they're sharing, and then supporting that client. Maybe sometimes they don't have quite the right words. And if you're hearing something, it's asking for permission. Can I offer you something? and then wait and see if that fits with them, if they give you permission. And if they don't give you permission, again, remain silent. That's okay. And then the last thing that we want to do is cultivating and learning growth, and that's to facilitate the client's growth. Works with a client to integrate the new awareness. It's about action steps. It's about your being vulnerable as a coach to be able to say, okay, what's the takeaway? And if there is no takeaway, then we got to figure out, okay, maybe I ought to give you a session for free. But if there is a takeaway, then celebrate that new insight, but build on that with them, those action steps, and then celebrate, if you have multiple settings with this person, and hopefully the coaching situations are going to be best served by having anywhere from 5 to 10 sessions to start with, then one of the things that you're looking at is celebrating with your client their progress and what they're doing, and then figure out what you need to do. Okay, how do we wrap up this session? What is here? And then in the end, even though I don't think I have it here, I don't have it here, and you can go back to the whole page if you want, Mike. One of the things that's important is, as you're coming to the end of things, maybe the end of the coaching relationship, it's find a way to develop a sense of closure, celebrating with your client what it is that went well, what it is that still needs to be worked on, maybe even talking about continuing coaching. All those things are part of it. I know I gave you a really rough outline. I was supposed to do it in 6 minutes, and it's been 10. So having said that, are there any questions to start with? And Mike, you can, maybe I should unshare the screen.
Yeah, Ken, you need to unshare.
I did it. There we go. Thank you. I gave you a really quick run through, and I apologize for that. What we just did is going to be taking place over a 16-hour training program, and you just got it in 10 minutes. Any questions, any thoughts? Otherwise, I'll leave it up to the poll for Mike to do, and then Joe and I will demonstrate Joe, 15, 20-minute coaching session?
Yeah.
Ken, you'll have to make me host.
All right, where do I do that?
You go into participants and click on the participants, and then there are a list of activities you can do for those participants.
Okay, and where are you, Mike? You're the host.
He's down about 5.
Yeah, I got him. There we go.
And click on more.
There we
Got
go.
You're the
Okay.
boss.
I'm the boss, huh?
So the poll is going to be 2 different scenarios that you get to choose on what you want to see be coached. And they are real scenarios, one from my setting, one from Ken's setting. So we don't know who's coaching tonight until you complete the poll.
Ready?
And
And
Joe
he's-
and I probably won't vote. This is all up to you.
Can you see it?
No,
No.
Nope.
Okay, so it's here on mine. How do let's see.
bottom right, share poll, start poll, there's a button.
Relaunch poll.
Yep, that's it.
You can
I
see
can
it
see
now.
it. This is cool. Okay, so it looks like we have 100% answers of people participating, and it looks like 64% want to hear the church budget challenges.
Wonderful, Joe. So one of the things that I would encourage you is, if you can remember any of the things that were in the core competencies, I want you to think back on that and listen to what we're doing as we're doing it. We're not sharing that video anymore, that screen anymore. So, Joe, it's up to you and me, I guess.
Well,
And
we're
we're
going
going-
to ask, everybody to turn off their video. Stop your video. So you're only going to see Joe and Ken. And mute.
And everybody mute. Yep, great. Well, Joe, great to see you tonight. How are you doing?
Doing okay.
You're doing okay. All
Yeah, I
right.
got
well-
lots of stuff going on today, but I'm glad to be here tonight.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that. Hey, Joe, one of the things that's important before we get started is just to remind you that, our conversation tonight is between you and me and those people that are listening in, but this is our conversation, and certainly we want to make sure that you understand that. And I think that's an important piece for us to work with. So, Joe, what are we looking at tonight? What are the things going on? You said a lot of stuff happening.
Yes, there's a lot of stuff going on, but the one that I'm looking for some coaching on is it's budget season right now. It's going to be the second budget that I've worked with my congregation on. The first one, I was pretty much I had no idea what was going on and saw some challenges and some problems with it. And this is the first time that I've gotten to see the entire process from the start to what's going to be the finish coming up shortly. And have seen some real challenges and some real struggles with it, and trying to figure out my role as a clergy person. I'm in a designated term, so I'm not the called pastor there. That gives me some leverage and also some liability and challenges in how I lead, but I'm trying to figure out what it is I can do to help the congregation with their budgeting.
Okay. So what have you done to this point for being engaged?
So to this point, I've rewritten the entire accounting chart of account structure and moved
Okay.
to a completely different way, the more modern way of doing accounting for nonprofits, and have created that new structure so that, at least for the budgeting process, there's much more clarity about what all the different line items are and who's responsible for them. And within that, have really restructured all the income aspects and also provide them with some online giving options. And so I've worked on some of the core parts kind of around the budget, but I haven't actually done work with the budget itself.
Okay. Well, at least in terms of a first stage, how has that worked for you? Have you felt good about that?
Oh yeah, that's definitely a huge improvement.
Okay, good. So what steps are next for you then after you've revamped this? Now, where do you go from there?
Well, that's the part that I'm kind of struggling with right now.
Okay.
Is that the one budget, the most recent budget meeting that we had, it's clear that the income is not going to match the expenses.
Okay.
The congregation was told that they were going to be having a balanced budget, and that if it wasn't, and we're told that they needed to pledge to be able to get to the point where there would be a balanced budget. During the budget meeting, it was clear that there wasn't going to be a balanced budget as a significant shortfall. And the treasurer had indicated that they were going to run some of the numbers and send it out to the group. And then if the group approved of it, it would go to the consistory. And within that, I was questioning if they were planning to get to a balanced budget. And they had indicated, no, they didn't see that as their responsibility, that would be consistory's responsibility. Consistory hasn't been part of the conversation whatsoever. They haven't they're not involved with that granular detail. And I followed up the question asking if the budget that's sent to consistory, if its expenses exceed, if the deficit exceeds the financial reserves of the church, is that a budget that's ready to go?
Okay.
Because they're getting close
Okay.
to that. And again, they didn't think that that was their responsibility. And I'd asked them if the group who was responsible for understanding how 2024's decision will impact 2025's option.
Mhm.
And again, they didn't see that as their responsibility, though their title is budget and finance.
Okay.
And they were looking to give that to the consistory.
So I've heard several things, Joe. One, going back to the early part of the conversation, you're the designated pastor, so therefore you've got some latitude. You can give some pushback on that. As you're looking at what you've done so far, revamping, retooling, and modernizing their way of looking at it, and yet you're getting pushback from your finance team. Give me 3 or 4 options that you have moving forward where you can leverage your position in the immediate.
Some of it is, let me think about that a little bit. Our congregation has had conversations about the effectiveness of that particular committee. Some individuals have expressed potential interest on being on the committee. They're not sure if it's a place where they'll be able to effectively engage in their ministry. So possibly engage in conversations about who are the people that are part of that team, and how that team is functioning, and what it would look like to have different voices come on and be a part of the process. So that would be one of the conversations that would be possible. One of the things that I am looking to do is the pastor's report that I wrote to consistory was to highlight for them the ways in which I have concern over the budgeting process, and concern really significantly for how that puts them at an extremely difficult position to make decisions that they don't have the information nor the background information to make those decisions, and they pretty much have to make it's actually tomorrow night. They have to make that decision tomorrow night in order to start hitting the timelines for having the congregational meeting. So having them begin to have conversations about how do they want their budgeting process to work? What would be healthier, more meaningful, more engaged, informed ways to do this? And if they themselves see it as their responsibility, or if they want to have a deeper conversation with the budget and finance team about what they expect out of that budget and finance team. So that's 2.
Okay.
Let me see if I can pull out a third or not. I'm not sure if I can.
And that's okay. We're limited on our time frame today, so we've got about 5 or 6 minutes left.
Okay.
So of the 2 that you've kind of engaged in, what would it look like for you to which one of these would you want to pursue?
I think that recognizing the way in which the church works and functions, and understanding there are personalities that are involved, and there are just systematic things involving bylaws and other aspects. Probably the wisest step to take will be the conversation with consistory, and getting clarity on what they really want for for the church. And so it becomes a decision that isn't because this Yahoo designated term pastor is saying this idea, but it becomes about who and what the church wants to become for itself,
Yeah,
and taking responsibility for their financial decisions and the ways in which they structure themselves to get to that point.
so what would that conversation then look like tomorrow? You said tomorrow is this conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, probably I'll need to talk to executive. And so just get like those core leaders on board with what's
Mhm.
going on in my head. So it isn't just my head going into the meeting. And that way they can even serve as a sounding board then to see if this is something that they want to bring into that meeting and get some of their ideas on how best to approach it, and also see if there's any, I like to call them landmines, like
Yeah.
any things that I just may not be on my radar screen that they might know because of their history with the congregation and history with the decision making. So I think
So
that's going to be an important first step.
So your first step then is to talk with your executive team to make sure that they're on board before you go to the consistory. Is that correct?
Yeah, before I open up my mouth too much at the consistory and
Okay.
insert foot.
There you go. Okay. What else where do you go from there?
Well, if consistory doesn't want to go anywhere with it, then I think that I'm going to have to regroup and really ask a question for myself about what is the range of options, and understand that range of options is going to be much more narrow, and it's going to be a lot more about influence suggestion instead of direct leading. And if the consistory says yes, then I hope that we do a little bit of brainstorming about well, one, get clarity on what is it that they expect to receive from that team. And I think that them answering that question, well, that's going to help set the stage on what then they really need from the budget and finance team, and begin to ask, is the budget and finance team as it's currently constructed, is it even equipped to do that? Because that might be part of the problem.
Right.
Because part of the budgeting process is none of the committee chairs are part of the budget discussions. They just submit numbers, and then people who don't have any relationship with those chairs then compile them and make decisions about those numbers. And it's very far distant from the people that are directly impacted.
Okay. Well, Joe, we have about 2 minutes and left in a conversation that really needs a much longer period of time. And so I appreciate the work that you're doing so far. What are we taking away? What awareness have you come to?
So part of the awareness is making sure that I'm not going at this alone. So even though I think that I have a good idea, to make sure that I am partnering with other people, getting feedback, insight, and perspective, and kind of building that out, that network, that group of people, of executive, then consistory, and from there really begin plotting out the way forward.
So you see with that awareness, you see that going into your action steps then?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a core component of the effectiveness of the action steps. And for an area that for most churches is pretty sensitive, and being really intentional and understanding why to proceed in that way.
Okay. And so just so that we can recap, your action steps for these days ahead of you are going to be doing what?
Say that last part again.
So going back and looking at your action steps, what exactly, so we have a timeline for what you're looking at?
Yeah, so I'll try and get a communication out to executive after this meeting and be in conversation with them. And then from their responses, determine how much I really share. Dig into tomorrow night's conversation. It's already outlined things in my pastor's report, so that's already out there for people to read. But what we do with it, then that's a live question. And kind of follow on from there.
Okay. Well, good work for you tonight, Joe. And it looks like you've got some traction. So I'm looking forward to hearing what that will look like in the coming weeks.
Thanks so much, Ken. Really appreciate it.
All right. Take care. Okay. Bring everybody back in, Mike.
Yeah. So everybody turn on your webcams again.
Yay.
So one of the statements about coaching, it's taught more than taught. So being able to see what coaching is, and even more so experiencing coaching, helps give a sense of what's involved, how does it work, and why is it different than counseling or consultant work. So invite everybody, you can unmute yourselves. We're just going to have some group discussion. What stuck out for you as you were watching the coaching? You can either relate it back to some of those core competencies or things that you're like, oh, that was interesting, or why did it do that?
This is Bruce. Ken let you do all the work. He asked you the questions. You were the one that figured out what you were going to do, and then he would draw you out with more questions.
This is just thinking about the difference between like counseling and coaching. Like he wasn't asking you how you felt about things. He was saying, what's the next step? What would get you where you want to go? And so he kept leading you, and also being aware of how much time you had. And so helping you kind of bite off the chunks that you could bite off in this amount of time.
Yeah.
I think he asked it. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just hold on to that thought, Ron, for a second. There are times, though, that as a coach, you can, if you see a response as triggering something, you can ask, "What's going on? You know, what are you feeling right now?" That's not a counseling question, but that really is that's a more poignant, because if you're seeing what's going on and you're willing to risk it and ask them, that actually engages a bigger level of trust. So just to say that we don't always avoid asking the touchy-feely questions. Ron, I'm sorry.
I thought early on, I mean, it seemed to me, and I don't know if it did to you, Ken, that Joe was kind of at that, you know, I'm at a roadblock here. And you asked, I guess what you call powerful questions. You invited him to brainstorm several options, which I think it's a safer thing to do than to say to someone, "So what are you going to do?" And it invited him to just to reflect upon it himself and to pose some possibilities. And I think that's what kept it going. Otherwise, it would have been a very short session.
One of the things that one of my early coaches asked the class, he said, "How many of you," and I'll take a hand on this one now. You can raise your hands. You don't have to all answer. But the question is, how many of you have ever rented a car? How many of you have ever changed the oil in that rented car? He says you'll only take care of that which you invest in. And if you're buying the vehicle, you're going to take care of it. If you're renting the vehicle, you're going to let somebody else take care of it. If I told Joe what to do, or I only gave him one option, said, what do you want to do about it? There's no buy-in. He's not going, it's not his. But if I give him options, let him process through that, then he's going to say, this is where I need to be. This is what I'm going to do.
A really core part of coaching as well is the idea that the same thinking gives you the same answers. So coaching intentionally looks to help a client shift perspectives and look at the same issue, but do it from different ways. And sometimes, like a great coaching question is, well, what's the craziest thing you could do?
Yeah.
And you get this whole freedom being like, okay, so what would be completely off the wall? And just that shifting can open up things.
And we didn't have time with a 15, 16-minute coaching session. We didn't have time to play with all that, but that's exactly a great place.
Dan, did you have a thought about?
Yeah, I was curious about how you see the difference between coaching and consulting.
So within consulting, the consultant has the answers, and you are paying the consultant in order to give you the knowledge that the consultant has. And if you follow the plan and the formula that's set out from the consultant, then you should get the results that the consultant's promising. In a coaching relationship, I and Ken, we're experts at coaching. You are the expert of your particular setting. And so it's two experts coming together to help in a partnership that allows you to better problem solve and address the issue in your area. But I, as the coach, always assume you are the expert in your particular area.
Interesting. Yeah.
And with a consultant too, and this is why we don't, that's why Joe and I don't do consulting, is that if you follow all the things that your consultant told you to do, and it fails, you can always blame the consultant. If you get a coach and you've done the things that your action steps are calling you to do, and it doesn't work, then we find a new avenue to go. It's not a failure. It's just this one didn't work. Where do we go from here?
Okay.
And that's a partnership that's engaged with the coaching.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah. So the other part within coaching, it's really there to draw out your excellence, which is a foundation to coaching. If I don't believe that there's excellence inside of you, I can't be your coach. Because that's what's really being drawn out. So the excellence that you believe is present in the team, in the individual, or in the group, and leaning into that and giving more encouragement so that there's a greater confidence to believe, you know what, I really do know something. Any other things that stuck out for you or you wanted to note or question from the coaching demonstration? Shifting, the second and last question that we really have for you is...
Well, I do have a question, Joe, because I noticed that when you were asked for options, you came up with two. And first one was to engage the budget committee. And talk about, you know, what they're doing. And the second one was to go by way of the consistory.
Actually, the executive team.
Yeah, the executive team. What caused your shift in thinking in terms of going that direction as you were thinking that through?
Okay. So one of the things about coaching as well, the coach doesn't need to know all the particulars. And so Ken didn't try and dig in to those particulars, but what he trusted was I was thinking through all the different dynamics that are present. And so I didn't indicate any of the personality dynamics that are there that distinguish those two groups. I didn't dive into my personal relationship with those different groups, but Ken was trusting I was aware of that, and I was doing the work that I needed to do to figure out which one was best. So to answer your question, Mike, it's really about that would be diving into the details of my particular situation and figuring that out.
And just to add to that, that's where we're coaching the person and not the problem. And one of the things, if you listened when he was talking about the things that he would do with the executive team, he did kind of allude to those dynamics, those personality dynamics. So I didn't need to dig in because I heard from him already what was being said or not said in the former time. And again, we would have done it a little bit differently if we had more time, but we wanted to get the basis.
Yeah, that was also part of it. Like the time does have an impact, and it's beneficial in some ways of getting you to where you want to go. So the follow-up question to all of this is, how could you see coaching being helpful for your ministry setting? Do you believe it could be helpful for your ministry setting?
I think as a pastor, you get stuck. You don't have, you know you got a problem and you don't have the vision to see beyond it. And from past experience, I know that coaches tend to open you up to your future and help you to think what are your options? And nobody's really asking you those questions at the local church. And so it's just such an opening and freeing experience.
I can see it more on an individual basis. I would be challenged with a leadership group because I'm part of the leadership. You know what I mean? I think that an outside coach would be better able to ask some of the questions because they don't know the answers. Or, so then I don't come at a question with my bias.
So Bob, with what you're saying there, when I'm working with my leadership team, I will try to embody a coaching mindset, but I'm also aware that what you just said, I'm oftentimes too close to what that situation is. And so if I were in a situation where I knew we were working towards something, I'd give Joe a call and say, Joe, do you have time to come to my next meeting? Our leadership team is going to get together. I could use a coach to come in and really recognize that a one-time coaching situation is probably not what's going to happen. To make it work, I'm going to be hiring Joe to come in for probably, depending on what the situation is, it could be 3-5 sessions. It could be more, depending on the depth of what it is that we're needing to deal with. But and Joe and I have talked about this. There's a very distinct difference between, and you'll see this on the website as well, between coaching individuals, coaching teams, and coaching groups. And so that's another piece to it. Right now, we're a group, so we could coach this group. We're not a team. Joe and I will probably, and the Church Futures Commission probably are trying to work as a team, and that we would coach it in a different way than we would with the individual or with a group. But you can read more of the dynamics and the definitions of that in the on the website.
Any final sharing that individuals want to do on this topic before we hand it back to Mike? Mike, I think it's your ball now.
Well, do we want to throw out the idea or let Mike handle that training session?
Oh, so if you are interested in coaching in general, just either individually or with your congregation, so as Mike had said earlier, contact him and he will bring that to the Church Futures Commission. There is some grant support that's available for underwriting some of the coaching aspects. And then also one of the things that we're going to be having a conversation about at our next Church Futures Commission is the idea of doing a coaching basics training so that individuals can get some training in these skills so that within your own individual ministry, you're able to start having a little bit of this mindset and be able to apply some of it to the way in which you're doing ministry as well. So one of the gifts that we want to offer to the conference.
Well, thanks, Ken and Joe. I really appreciate your doing that. And aside from the topic, it was all unscripted, right? It seemed to be. So it was very, very authentic. So thank you again. So coaching is one of the services that we can talk about. And I mentioned that we're trying to put together some contacts for actual consulting. We haven't gotten that far yet in terms of who could be consultants or who would be consultants. There is another feature that has been a part of the work that we've done, which isn't purely coaching. It's more a matter of facilitating. There have been church leadership teams, for instance, who wanted to do a study on a particular book, on maybe on governance or on budgeting or what have you. And rather than coach them through difficulties they're having, they simply want to get a better grip on things. They want to do a study, and sometimes they want an outside person to come in and help to facilitate that conversation. That's a service that's also available. So because not everything that you're doing with is necessarily a coaching situation. So that's why we want to take a look at, if you were to contact me, we would have a conversation about what it is you're talking about. Give me a better idea, and I might use some coaching techniques or some coaching questions to kind of discern what it is you're really dealing with, and trying to get the best service to fit your particular situation. And one can lead to the other. It might very well be that in a facilitating situation, you come up with something happens, and someone is saying, we're really stuck on this. Well, maybe that's time to call in a coach, and that can be, we can make that transition. So the whole idea behind the Church Futures Commission is to be there for you, to help you discern your future, your congregation's future, whatever it might be. Some it's revitalization, some is legacy stuff. Like, how do we make the decision to end our ministry here in this particular place? So we want to be there for you to the best of our ability. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share tonight. I will certainly take questions about coaching or about the Church Futures Commission in general. And let me know what you'd like to know any more about what we've been talking about. Any questions at all?
This is Fa. Is there
Yeah,
I don't know, part in the newsletter or something like that about the ongoing work of this group? I think it's valuable, but I don't, there will be things that I will want to share with my own church, but there may be things that as I talk with clergy friends, I could say, hey, they're doing that. They have something that you could look at, but I don't know where to send them to. Well, now we have the website.
We have the website. We've been talking about doing a newsletter or adding something to the weekly mailing from the conference office that focuses on the work of the Church Futures Commission. That's a part of our communication team, and we haven't gotten to that point yet. We wanted to get some experience under our belts and to really have something to share. And I think that's probably coming close. Bruce, you're on that. We were talking about something after the holidays, starting in January, something with the newsletter kind of thing.
Yes. We were thinking of perhaps taking you noticed on the website, there were different offerings there. Appreciative inquiry, legacy churches, possibly conflict management, all that. And as we got those offerings up and running, we would post something in the newsletter about that. And perhaps there might be some kind of workshop or something associated with it. That's still in the planning stage.
Yeah.
I'll just speak for myself. I'd prefer it come through the PCC news we already get, because I get lots of other email newsletters. It'd be
Okay.
nice if it's just in one
Yeah.
spot.
Thank you.
That's good feedback. Anything else? No, we're okay. Well, I hope you learned something tonight. I hope it was worth your time. As always, get in touch with me if you have any further questions. And I'd be glad to get back to you as soon as I can. I know, for instance, there's one church, one pastor who's talking to me, and we've had a couple of conversations to decide which way to go before we really get to actually working with them. But part of that's their own discernment as to what it is they really want to do. And also don't forget that if you're a pastor, coaching can be individual. Sometimes congregations can make more headway if the pastor has been coached individually. So they know how to deal with whatever circumstance they're focusing on. So don't discount getting that kind of assistance for yourself if you need it. Okay. Well, then I will thank you all for taking the time. It's been good to see some faces I've known from around the conference, and I hope to be talking with you again, and stay tuned for more from the Church Futures Commission.